Join Glenn Daniels and Sandra Long on Essential Leadership Skills, a discussion with TEDx speakers. Sandra is a LinkedIn expert, consultant, author, and speaker. Her best-selling book is LinkedIn for Personal Branding, The Ultimate Guide. Sandra presented the first ever TEDx talk about LinkedIn in 2019. The 11-minute speech is called LinkedIn Community, a superpower hiding in plain sight, and is available on YouTube. She is a professional member of the National Speakers Association and a certified virtual speaker with eSpeakers. Sandra and her company, Post Road Consulting, focuses 100% on LinkedIn education and thought leadership. Welcome, and let's learn about the hidden superpower of LinkedIn.
Good morning, everybody, and I'll just say it so there's no confusion. I know it may not be morning where you are, but it's morning where I am. It's always morning where I am, just because of the level of energy we can have in the morning time. So, I want to welcome you to these essential leadership skills. We've been working on speaking with TEDx leaders, mostly because they really have a passion for what they're doing. They really understand, and that's why I really like the introduction that was read for Sandra, but you guys should know, she knows what she's doing. Okay, and I just want to say welcome, Sandra, and thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Hello, Glenn, and thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm very happy to be here.
It's going to be powerful, useful for all of us who are struggling with LinkedIn. As leaders, we struggle with LinkedIn a lot. I listened to your podcast. I'm sorry, I won't call it podcast. Listen to your TEDx twice, and it just generated a bunch of questions on how to apply some of these things. So I'm going to get into that. But first thing I want to know, if you can share with us what is unique, powerful, or interesting that people need to know about you, yourself, or your company, or your TEDx talk. So you, your TEDx talk, or your company. What's unique and powerful that they should know about?
I'm in my second career. My first career, I spent always customer-facing B2B sales and also leadership roles. And then I started my business and focus 100% on LinkedIn in 2013. So I had a big pivot, and it's been great.
Is it really a big pivot? You said retail customer service, and then I don't want to give away what we're going to talk about later on, but you also seem to take that approach to LinkedIn itself. So was it a big pivot? Yeah, or?
It was a pivot in that going from being a corporate leader, corporate employee, to having my own business, that part was a big pivot. But I absolutely applied, and one thing led to the other, because I was using LinkedIn very early in my sales career, and I was using it for doing research, client research, so that I could have a better conversation with clients and learn more about them. And so then it was that part of it was a gradual, it made sense. It was an evolution.
Okay, it does make sense, which will be a question later on. Sales navigator, why or why not? But that's later on. Move to that question a little bit. Tell us about the journey to your TEDx. So I want to know, from the time you conceived that you wanted to do it, till the time you walked up on the stage, what was that like? What happened? What experiences did you have?
I would have to say that I didn't initially think I was becoming a speaker. I was in my corporate life. I started my business, and in my business, which is Post Road Consulting, I was helping people with LinkedIn, helping companies, organizations, and even colleges. So during that time, I evolved into becoming a speaker. I became a speaker about LinkedIn. And of course, to me, the TEDx is a pinnacle. It's if you're a speaker, that's something that you consider a very prestigious thing to do. So it was a challenge for me. It was a personal challenge that I gave myself, why I wanted to do it. And I'm in a couple of speaker groups. And so in one of the speaker group, the primary speaker group that I'm in is here in Connecticut, and we are hosted by the Ferguson Library in Stanford, and they do a TEDx there. So that helped me on my journey as well.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna really drill down, because I found people really like to know about you. Were you nervous getting on the stage?
Yes, I was nervous. In fact, I speak all the time, and I'm typically not nervous, but just because it was a TEDx, I did feel more nervous. After about a minute, everything was fine.
Did you memorize your talk before you started?
I almost memorized it, not 100%. And I practiced it so many times. I really practiced it. I wrote it out. I prepared in great detail. But I'd say about 90% memorized.
Okay. Tell us about the process of taking what you learned and drilling it down to under 18 minutes. Yours was about 6, was it?
Mine was I think 11 minutes.
11. Okay. How'd you drill everything down? Because just look at the title of it: LinkedIn Community, a superpower hiding in plain sight. That's 5 seconds just to say that. But that says a superpower. I want to know what superpowers you're referring to, and I would be tempted to want to hear all those, but we can't do that in a TEDx talk. How hard was it for you to narrow that down?
I wanted it to be shorter. I did not want to go 18 minutes. I know that 18 minutes is the maximum, but I also understood that the trend lately is for shorter TEDx talks. So I purposely wanted it to be around 11 or 12 minutes, which was very challenging. And but I'm grateful that it came out the length that it did, because I personally think from a listening perspective, it's easier to have the shorter ones.
Yes, it is. We talked about that on LinkedIn. It's probably easier to have a real short video clip on LinkedIn than it is anything else. You talked in your TEDx about I think name was Mike, and
Mm-hmm.
he said something to you that rang true to me, that I don't think a lot of people are willing to stand up to you and ask you this. But trust. He didn't trust people. What is the issue behind that?
I told the story about Mike. All those stories were real people, real clients, and
Yeah.
it really blew my mind that here he was. He was 50 years old. He was in a 2-year job search. He had a great profile. He was even comfortable doing content. But when I said, let's go look at your connections so that you can start having conversations, he said, no way. And I was shocked out of my mind. And when he told me he didn't trust any of those people. So obviously there's a critical problem. And
Right.
so to me, it tied in with the whole talk, or the big idea is that it's up to us to create our own LinkedIn community. It's up to us to do that by proactively connecting with people and by keeping our network strategic to us. Because if you're just connecting with people that invite you and you don't know them, you're not setting up your network, you're not creating a community or a network that's going to be powerful or strategic for you, which is what his problem was.
Well, but this trust issue, it's two-sided. I don't trust the people I'm connecting with to not spam me, to not send me 1,000 sales pitches. I don't trust that. But the other side of the issue is, like you said, you have to create your community. You have to build trust. I want to dive in on that first side. When you have people spamming you, that's because you've just probably accepted a lot of invitations, invites, without really looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, we all have that happen, and it's so disturbing. And that's the opposite of how I teach LinkedIn. If someone does that to you, a lot of people are going to just disconnect or unconnect from that person. So your network is up to you to create.
Okay, so now building it from the trust side of it, people building trust, me creating trust in them, building a network that's of trust. Can you walk us through, and I know it's in your book and there's some other places, but can you walk us through the process of building trust? Maybe just give us highlights.
The trust that you build, it is completely connected to your personal brand. And I do write about it in my book as LinkedIn for Personal Branding. And trust is, you establish trust by the person you are online and offline. And it works. It's not like it's just online or just offline. It's all of it. And it's not just your profile. Your profile is absolutely a piece of that to develop trust by how you communicate about what you do, but it's also your network, how you communicate, how you do messaging, how you post. It's your whole presence online and offline together that creates trust or breaks down trust.
So when someone has the presence to say, okay, I'm putting out content. I think you talked about Dan was that way, he was just putting out a lot of content. And that created some level of trust, but then it felt like maybe he wasn't getting the leads for sales that he needed. Did I misinterpret that from Dan?
I don't recall a Dan. I did talk about a Doug.
Doug. I'm
My talk.
sorry.
And
It was
it was
only a
his.
few minutes ago. I should remember those names.
No,
Doug,
it's
yeah.
okay. So you're doing amazing that you were remembering the stories even. No, Doug was the opposite of Mike. Doug wasn't really posting content, but he had great relationships. So
Okay.
he had great relationships and he connected with those people on LinkedIn. And so when he lost a job, he was able to use LinkedIn to have career conversation. So the reason I told that story is really just the opposite of Mike.
Yeah.
Now, you're bringing up another topic, which has to do with, I believe, content and sales. Is that where you want to go?
Yeah, for a moment.
Content is something that whether it's a buyer or a hiring manager, every one of us regards content as part of how we evaluate things, right? How we determine our interest. It's not just a website or a LinkedIn profile, but we're all consuming content, and that is framing our impressions of people, of jobs, of companies, of vendors. And so the content has become really important, and LinkedIn is an amazing content platform for all of us. They keep improving the features of the content. Now, it doesn't mean just because they have all these features and you can post, doesn't mean that I don't just recommend that, okay, now you just spew it all out. No, because there's etiquette involved and there's engagement, and you need to be engaged with other people's content. It's if you went to an event and you just go and start handing out brochures or just start speaking without listening, like it would never work.
Exactly. It'll never work. So when people are posting content, at first, it seems like you got to really post a lot of content, but isn't it true that it's more of the consistent amount of posting?
So I don't say to people, go on there and post a lot of content. In my book, I talk about the 80-20 rule. And I
Yes.
say 80% of your time, you want to be engaging with other people's content.
Okay, so every now and then we try to find what I call a writable moment, not a tweetable moment, but a writable moment. If you're listening, grab a piece of paper and pencil and say 80% of my time on LinkedIn should be engaging people.
Yes, 100%. I mean, 80%. Yeah, 100% true. It is 80%.
So that drives the question for me. When you're engaging people, if 80% of your work on LinkedIn is engaging people, there's really no way that you can ship that off to other people.
I'm a big believer that you do it yourself. There's definitely people I feel like if you're automating it, people know it. Like I see people that they'll automate their posts and then you put a comment on and they don't answer you. It falls flat. So if you're hiring someone else to do it. So I think the best content is done by the thought leader. Definitely.
Okay. Can I push back just a hair?
Sure, do it.
So before this pandemic broke loose, I was speaking 40 weeks a year. I'd be gone 2 to 3 days a week, sometimes longer. And after working a 6 to 8 hour day, try to get some dinner, to go back and to engage one-on-one with people was very tough. Coach me on how I should be looking at that. What should I, because LinkedIn never has been a big source for my speaking leads, but I didn't use it that much, but this is getting a big source for magazine. But talk to me about, hey, Glenn, get your act together. This is what you should have been doing.
No, first of all, I think people create a big mountain of a task in front, and they make it like this huge issue in front of them. I'd really try to simplify it.
Okay.
I mean, for someone like you who's off on the road all the time, as you in the morning logging in for 10 minutes, and I don't go and log in and spend my whole day doing this. When I log in, I'm actually looking for specific content that I can comment on. I don't just go and spend all my time in the home feed thinking, oh, maybe I'll see something. I'm trying to be much more prescriptive and strategic about it. And so within 10 minutes, I can find topics and content that I want to comment about. And
You
then,
find those in groups, though, right?
I'm sorry?
You find that in groups, other
Not
people's
usually.
groups?
I mean, most of the groups are not where the best action is.
Oh,
I would say use hashtags. And also you could use Sales Navigator can help you do this, or use hashtags, or you can now search by posts, which we couldn't do years ago. We couldn't do that. So you can do a search by posts.
okay.
And I save those too. Like I'll save in a bookmark. I'll bookmark posts on different topics. So I don't take a lot of time.
So if I searched by leadership
Yeah.
skills,
Yeah.
so hashtag, so in the search bar, hashtag leadership skills, that should bring me back articles on leadership skills.
Yes. So you click on posts, and you can even put first level connections, because you'll probably get a lot of companies that are putting up leadership stuff.
Yeah.
So if you want it, you can get just whatever's up there. So when you put in leadership, You can get posts, you can get people, you can get companies. You can use the search filters to find all that. Just make it easy for yourself so you're not wasting a lot of time.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, that's really critical. That's something because I honestly look at a lot of these, and it takes me two-thirds or more, or some kind of somebody trying to sell somebody something, or announcing this, announcing that. You very rarely come across an article that you can read and post back on. And so that what you just shared with us, I think is super powerful. I think that's just really powerful right there. So just hashtag whatever your
Yeah,
mantra is.
it could be right. So if you did that while you're having your coffee in the morning before you get going, as you're checking your email, and do it again at lunchtime to see if there's comments. You always want to comment back, and then do it at the end of the day. You can do it. The whole thing isn't going to be that much because you're already checking your email. You're checking things.
Okay. But maybe my last technical question: when someone just likes, they just put a like by your comment, do you respond?
To a like, no, I typically don't respond. When they comment, I always comment back.
Always comment back. Okay. All right. Now, here's a question for you that also came from some of your work. And I'm just wondering, why is being proactive? How do you be proactive on LinkedIn? And you said it's essential, but tell us more about why.
Okay, in the TEDx talk, I was talking about being proactive about who's in your network.
Okay.
So again, getting back to Mike, who had no one in his network that he trusted because he had never initiated the invitations. He had always been someone who either decided yes, no, yes, no. He had never initiated. So I think, and so for some people who say, oh, I never invite people, their network is not going to be that good. So
Yeah.
you want to be proactively, I think, again, if you're spending a few minutes every day, think about who did I talk to today? That should be part of everyone's routine too. Who did I meet with? Who did I talk to? Let's invite them to connect. Who am I doing business with this week? Who am I speaking with on a panel? Who am I engaging with on Facebook? Or like all the different people that we come in contact with during the week that we're working with should be people that we would send a personalized note and connect with.
Okay. Okay. So if you have a large network, then you're already, and some people have 35, 40,000 people, but maybe a lot of them are not so great, but that's a pretty large network. How do you suggest they proactively approach them? Is that writing good articles? When you say proactively, is that what that kind of means?
The word
Okay,
proactive can be applied in a lot of ways. It can
okay,
be,
to LinkedIn. Okay,
okay, so first of all, proactively inviting people to connect. That's
okay,
number one.
yeah, okay,
The second thing is being proactive in terms of how you engage. So not just there are people that come onto LinkedIn, just sit back and say, my profile's good. How come I don't get any action? You've got to be proactive in terms of engaging, commenting, finding content, searching for people, connecting. It's a whole thing that you're doing. And then the third thing is you can be proactive in your messaging. If you just say, oh, I get these terrible messages. Okay, you get terrible messages. What kind of messages do you send out? Do you send out really good quality messages? Because if you're proactively sending out good quality messages, you'll get good quality messages back. So being
What
proactive is across the board.
what makes up a good quality message? What?
A good quality message. First of all, I do a whole class on messaging because there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of really bad messages, Glenn, and you've mentioned this. There's a lot of really bad messages. So first of all, I typically am not sending messages out to strangers. I'm sending out messages to people that I know, and it's personalized and it's meaningful and it's valuable and it's about them. I'm not going to send a message and say, here's my stuff and here's my class and here's my book. I just would never do that. But I would send a message. Maybe I learned something that was interesting for someone, or I read something about their company. I could send a message. I heard this about your company and congratulating people, whatever. It's very personal and it's very focused on them because people care about themselves. They don't want to hear your message about yourself.
Okay, okay. So and I'm going to give you some time to really hammer into that a little bit later. But tell us, how do we get a hold of you to get in that class? Because right there, that's worth a gold mine. A good proactive message that works, high quality. How do people get a hold of you? And, yeah, I'll give you another chance to talk about that later. But let's just
Well, LinkedIn's the best way. You can email me, but LinkedIn at Sandra Long on LinkedIn. And there are quite a few Sandra Longs on LinkedIn. So if you have trouble finding me, you can put in the word LinkedIn or the word or New York. I'm in the New York area. That might help you find me. And
Okay.
so LinkedIn is the best. And my company is Post Road Consulting.
Okay.
So Sandra at postroadconsulting.com is my email.
Or look in the show notes. We can do
Oh
that
yeah,
too.
look in the
Yeah,
show notes.
look in
If
the
you're
show
going to make
notes
it
as well.
easy for people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that'd be
Or my
easy.
book, if you can find me on Amazon, the LinkedIn for Personal Branding on Amazon, that's another place you can find me.
I'm curious, your book, LinkedIn for way out of order, how I want things to go, but you mentioned it. LinkedIn for Personal Branding, the ultimate guide. Did you write that book before you did your TEDx, or did you write it after?
So both. Originally I wrote it in 2016, then I did the TEDx in 2019, and then I completely updated my book in the beginning of 2021.
Okay, okay,
So it's all fresh, updated.
okay. And of course, that's available on Amazon for people to get to.
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, don't worry, I'll give her a chance to give you all that information and what each of them do for you, so you'll know. But this is a question to me that just stays out there. How do you motivate on LinkedIn? First thing, what do you mean by motivate on LinkedIn, and then how do you do it?
One of the things as part of my teaching, is I say to my clients, and whether it's an audience that I'm speaking to or companies that I work with, is you want your presence on LinkedIn to be motivational. You want people to read your profile or your content and to have them be inspired so that they want to know you. So it's all about, it gets back to your personal brand and your presence. If you're someone who is just spewing about yourself all the time, you're not motivating anybody.
I very confused and started to clean it up a little bit. Your personal brand and your presence. Walk me through that. 'Cause-
Your personal brand, it can be interchangeable. When we word presence, it's very all encompassing, very much like personal brand is. So I guess I'm using it interchangeably.
Okay, so I've always, just to be walking back for me, personal brand and brand presence. So we're saying, I thought you're saying brand presence means what do I do to help my company? Personal brand says who I am.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you're bringing that up, because a lot of times I work with companies and the employees, they need to come across with their personal brand as well as the company brand. It's intertwined. So if you work for whoever your employer is, with the difference, LinkedIn is different from Instagram. Instagram, I'm Sandra Long and that's it, right? On LinkedIn, I'm Sandra Long, but I work at Post Road Consulting. And so LinkedIn, your presence or your brand, you want to incorporate that. One of the things that how we help with companies is helping them to help their employees bring out their personal brand, but also incorporate those elements of the company brand, those key messages, key images, things like that.
So I have been afraid of that just because some of the things I see, I don't think belong on LinkedIn. I think they belong on Facebook. And you hate to see some of the troubling, heartbreaking things that people put up of kids and death and how they just lost somebody. I'm not sure that personal branding belongs on LinkedIn, but you're saying it does.
I believe it does. And I think for each of us, we decide our line of demarcation. So you're bringing up that, and I talk about that in my book, because that was the big change from 2016. I never even brought this topic up, but in 2021 I did. And that is that LinkedIn has become so personal. You see people posting on things that you would never have imagined that they're posting on. And in the beginning, a lot of people were quite horrified and they said that belongs on Facebook. But I think it's very much, at first I had that feeling too, but I've made the personal decision that I'm not the police and that people have to decide for themselves where they draw the line. I know where I draw the line. I don't put anything about my family. I don't put anything about my health. I don't put anything about politics. I have a lot of things that I don't talk about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Other
yeah.
people get on there and it all comes out. So I think for each of us, we have to decide where we draw our personal line when it comes to LinkedIn.
Okay, all right. So I like that because what you're saying is, what are you comfortable doing? Glenn, what are you comfortable doing? Don't go past that.
Yeah.
And then don't worry about somebody else who's going past that.
Yeah, don't worry about them.
Yeah. Okay. I meant to do this earlier and I get things out of order. I get excited by something you say and I go to that question. But tell me about your title, A Superpower Hiding in Plain Sight. I'm more those last four words, hiding in plain sight. Tell us about that.
So, of course, it's something you think about. What do you call your TEDx talk? So, LinkedIn community was a very clear, that's the main title. And then the subtitle is A Superpower Hiding in Plain Sight. Because I think that the idea of LinkedIn community is not something, when I did this in 2019, I think a lot of people didn't realize, or I was trying to expose the fact that you create your own community. It's your opportunity, and that it is a community. It's not just a place where your resume is. It's really a place where you can build a community, and that is a superpower for job seekers, for salespeople, for company CEOs, for HR leaders, and it really can be, building that community can be your superpower to jobs, referrals, sales, definitely.
Okay. I think in your TEDx, hopefully I don't have it confused, but you're talking about someone who's actually applying for a job and the difference being the ones that use LinkedIn to make a connection
Yeah.
got sought after for the job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my TEDx talk, I talked about the fact that number one way to get hired is from employee referrals. So if you can use LinkedIn to see who are these employees at the companies. And again, if I've been proactive and built a strategic network, I should see who I know works at these companies, or maybe a second level connection. I should see those pathways by looking at those company pages. But if I haven't done that foundational work, then I have no clue.
Okay. So I'm going to pull that out a little bit and let's make it for some of our clients. A client is interested in expanding their reach, and maybe they want to expand their reach into a Walmart, something huge like that. You're suggesting that they go ahead and make the connection to people inside of Walmart by quality messaging and quality engagement.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
saying if that's your company that you've targeted, or whether it's Bank of America or Marriott, whatever company you want to work for, or you want to sell to, you want to see who works there. Absolutely.
And that's where your search is coming in. You could search educational
Mhm.
institutes or search education, Head Start, search Head Start, and then put in the company name, right? So now you got people who made an interest in Head Start programs at Walmart,
Yeah,
and
I
they
mean,
posted on.
you can use the search is pretty powerful, and you can use it the free search, or you can use Sales Navigator search or the career search. You can use the search and use the different filters to fine tune who you're looking for. But I guess the point of it is, if you're trying to get hired or to make a sale or to advance, you want to see who works at these companies, because and how you can build relationships with them. That is your number one way to get, being referred is also, from a sales perspective, the best way to get into any company.
Okay, okay, I like that a lot. Like that, and that makes great sense because referrals cost very little compared to spending a lot of money on marketing. And if you
Yeah.
can sit down and do, like you said, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at lunch, and maybe 10 minutes in the evening. And the biggest problem was searching and looking for something worthwhile to respond to. That was my biggest issue. But I just want to clarify, you're just kind of saying groups are really not the way to go.
It depends. I get, there's some good groups.
Okay.
I find they're trying to make some changes to groups. They're just about to do a new beta test on groups. So there's going to be some changes to groups. But the last few years, groups used to be fantastic on LinkedIn. Years ago, there was a lot of engagement. And what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years is that people are just posting links and you're not getting the engagement. Generally speaking, not every, there are a few good groups, but generally speaking, there's very low engagement.
Okay.
However, they're coming out with this new beta. They're testing some new functionality in the groups. So hopefully we'll see that change. So I
That'd be
think for
interesting.
most of us, if you built that community proactively, which is the whole point of my TEDx, if you've done that, you should be able to just mine all of that, whether it's the content or the people and the searching, to get those opportunities right out of your own network.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Another question for you. LinkedIn versus Sales Navigator. Which one do you prefer and why? Go ahead.
It So they're both great. LinkedIn, so Sales Navigator is not for everybody, and
Okay.
there's different premium products. There's, if you're if you're a recruiter, there's LinkedIn Recruiter. If you're a job seeker, there's LinkedIn Career. There's LinkedIn Business. There's LinkedIn Sales Navigator. There's different premium products, and people often ask me, do I need premium? It depends. It depends on how you're going to use it. I think they're all fantastic premium product. They're all fantastic. The question is, are you going to use it, and do you know why you're getting it? Sometimes I see people that upgrade it, have no idea why they're getting it, no idea why, the difference. And sometimes they're upgrading it for features that are for free. They think that I need to upgrade to get this feature, when actually they just didn't know how to use the free. So there's a lot of confusion about it, but they're great products. The LinkedIn Sales Navigator is great for someone who is a salesperson, and that's what they do. But it's important that they've built their foundation, that they've got their brand, they've got an amazing profile that's personal and company branded, and they've proactively built out their network and built their community. Like, you need to do that stuff first, because if you just get on LinkedIn like a brand new user and just sign up for LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's just not gonna be good. You need to do the basic things,
Yeah.
and then upgrade.
Because most of the work comes in finding first connections.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's where most of the power is, your first level connection. Definitely.
Okay. All right. So tell me this, and I don't know, but I just find this to be unique. How did this TEDx change your life and or your business?
It did change things because it gives me a lot of new credibility with speakers and with people that are going to hire me for speaking, because people recognize TEDx as something prestigious and that you're chosen to do, and they can go and look at it. So they get an idea of how I think about things. So it's really helped me in all of those ways. I'm very grateful that I did. It was very hard. I have to say, it was it was a big challenge, but I'm really grateful that I did it.
Tell me, and this is not, I don't want to go in real heavy detail, but what advice would you give someone who's looking to become a TEDx speaker? Do you have any advice you'd share with them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of places that have a TEDx opportunities. I would look at what is the theme of the TEDx, because you want to match the theme. If you might, even though one's right down the street from you, if it's not the right theme, I would rather you travel a little bit
Yeah.
and go to one that has a matching theme. And really read every one of them. Their applications are completely different. Some of them you
Mm.
have to try out, some of them you have to send videos, some of them you have to write a whole thing. So just, you're going to have to spend the appropriate time, number one, picking the right places to apply to, and then really carefully making those applications.
Okay.
And then the practice is huge. You don't want to apply, you want to make sure you can put aside a decent amount of time for the practice.
And my coach told me when I was first getting into way, he said, for every minute that you're speaking, you need 8 hours of practice.
Probably.
And so
Yeah.
that was a little excessive, I thought. But then I started realizing, okay, the better I got, the more I did it. Didn't need 8 hours, but I still needed to practice every new speech I give. And I think
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
mean,
TEDx people miss that.
it's so much practice. Because you want to feel really good about it. So I am very grateful for my husband, Tom, who listened to me over and over, and my friend Mary, who also did a TEDx on the same day, which was fantastic because we practiced in front of each other. We even got to go on the stage ahead of time to practice on that stage a couple days before, which was great.
Yep. And you got to be nervous buddies together, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. So now let's put that back into the LinkedIn. If I wanted to use LinkedIn to find TEDx talks, is that possible? Can you walk some people through that? Now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about this, but the book, the TEDx talk is useful, but the book, you got to get the book, but we'll get to that. But so back to the subject. So I want to find a TEDx talk. Coach us through maybe the process you could use on LinkedIn.
You wouldn't, if you want to find a TEDx talk, you probably want to go to YouTube. But if you want to find a TEDx speaker, you go to LinkedIn. And so you would put TEDx in the search, do a search by people. I mean, most people who are TEDx speakers have that in their profile very
Sure do.
prominently. So it's
Yeah.
very easy to put it in the search, and you'll see a whole list of TEDx speakers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then you can reach out to them and say, how'd you do it? And so forth and so on. Yeah. Or can you be a guest on my podcast? You can do that too as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. So here's the question I think a lot of people have in mind, and I have it as well. How are you helping people now? How are you making a difference right now?
I try to make a difference with obviously, I make a difference with my clients. And I have everything from small business customers to very large companies where they actually have my team on retainer. So we have all different kinds of arrangements. My book and my TEDx, those are my reaching points to just the world. And I'm so grateful I get people reaching me, in fact, usually through LinkedIn, from all different countries saying, I saw your TEDx talk, and they're from every continent, or they've read my book. And I'm just so grateful that people reach out to me on LinkedIn to tell me that they've read my book or that they've seen the TEDx talk.
Okay. I track with you, but I'm going to hold your feet to the fire a little bit more. Not necessarily your book, but in the trainings and classes you offer, how are you helping people? You don't have to give me the details, but maybe you can just give me, okay, we do this, we do that, we do this.
Yeah, I mean, for sales teams, I have a 6-part program where I help them starting with their presence and their profile, then into the strategic connecting, teaching them how to prospect, how to message. I have a whole messaging class, and then how to use the content. So and then the final piece is how putting it all together. So I do like a 6-step program for sales, but I also have programs for leadership teams because leaders need to be good on this, because not only from a personal perspective and how they look, because they're out there speaking, they're out there doing deals, they're out there in a prominent way, they need to have an amazing presence too, but they also need to understand LinkedIn for their organization. They need to be understanding how LinkedIn can help their sales team, how it can help their talent acquisition, how it can help their marketing and advertising. They need to have that fuller. So I have programs for LinkedIn for leaders as well. And then I also work with universities, whether it's staff or directly with college students. So there's lots of ways that we help.
Tell me about the universities. What are you doing with them? How are you helping universities? The
So
same, yeah,
sometimes I'm speaking to students doing so I was doing live in person. Now mostly it's on Zoom or online webinar
yeah,
type things.
yeah.
So I typically, for students, I do a two-prong program. The first is your LinkedIn profile for students, and the second one is LinkedIn job search. And so I do that with students, and then, but sometimes it's the career office or
Oh, okay.
the college folks. They're experts on interviews and resumes, but imagine LinkedIn is changing all the time, so they need to have me come in and help them brush up on LinkedIn.
Okay, okay. Now I follow. 'Cause when you said university students out, the university students out, but now I see the career planning
Yeah.
and helping those folks get the invite to come work for a company instead of them having to go search for it so much.
They should be using the college students need to use their alumni network. That's a big thing. That's one of their assets. They graduate, they get their diploma, and they're one of their big assets is that college network. And so we teach them how to leverage that with LinkedIn to get their first job.
Thought. So that's worthwhile, especially if you're doing higher education, just to reach out to you. Again, how to reach out to you is be in the show notes, but would you mind just saying it again for those who can't look at it right now?
So find me on LinkedIn, Sandra
Mhm.
Long. And if you put in the word LinkedIn, it might help you, or I'm in the New York area. My email is sandra@postroadconsulting.com. My company is Post Road Consulting, like the post
Okay.
office, but it's for post.
Okay, yeah. Post Road. Okay, I like that
Post
consulting.
Road.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, the LinkedIn process, if you got to get caught up with it. And it's one of those things you probably need a really good coach. Let me ask you my final question, unless you create another question here, but what question should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
I know. That's why I saved it for last. It doesn't tell you beforehand.
I
So,
think you were very thorough. We jumped around in a bunch of different ways,
yeah.
but I think you were extremely thorough. I don't have any complaints, whatever. I thought this was a fun conversation. I think you covered a lot of ground. I hope it was helpful for you, so I'm good.
It was very helpful for me. And I know it's going to be very helpful for not just the leaders, but for people who are trying to grow and build their company. LinkedIn is the way to go at. But the reason I asked that because you're the expert, and I might have missed a little something that you said. Let me just make sure that you guys catch this. You are, so that's why I asked that question.
Think about it. We could be on for hours. There's a million people have a lot of questions about LinkedIn. A lot of questions. So
Right.
there's a ton of questions about content. We just scratched the surface, and I gave you the high points, which is engage with other people first. Into connecting, the high point is be proactive, right? We could have gone more into the profile. I think there's a lot more we could have talked about because
Yes.
your profile is one of those first places people are going to go. So we could have spent more time there. People can obviously reach out to me or look at my book, but that is an area we could have spent more time on. But I thought it was a lot of fun talking with you today, Glenn.
Something you said, though, stripped away profile a lot more. Oh, that's what it is. You and I discussed before this about why this is not going live on LinkedIn, because it gets to be too long. But if we did a class like this, I would know. The last time I was on LinkedIn, just last week, live on LinkedIn, 4 people were asking questions, then 5, and then 6, and we could have went forever. And that's where you could have been, because everybody would have been asking, well, what do you mean by this? So just even if there's only 4 or 5 people listening, they have questions. So do you recommend live on LinkedIn? If not, how do you fix it? Or if yes, what are some of the rules behind it? If not, what do you do?
It's up to the person. I'm not going to blanketly recommend anything, just like I don't blanketly recommend premium. It depends on the person.
Okay.
So first of all, you have to apply for it. You have to have the tools for it. You have to get accepted by LinkedIn. So very few people actually have the feature. And yeah, I think some people do a great job. I think it's up to what your strategy is, whether you're going to use LinkedIn Live, whether you're going to do YouTube or Facebook Live, or whether you're going to record it and just put it on YouTube, or you've got a great strategy, you're putting this on your podcast. So it depends on the person's strategy, their capabilities, all of that. Live is fairly new. I think they're going to be making a lot of improvements to it, which I think people are looking forward to make it easier. I think it would be nicer if it didn't have the third-party tool that you have to do. But so I don't want to make a blanket recommendation. I think you have to look at it and see, is it right for me?
Okay. All right. That's, I want to say, a politically nice way of saying, let me talk to you about it, because I wonder if people had that question and you said, well, tell me about your business, you probably could be able to recommend.
I'd have to know about their business, what their goals are and whatnot.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I want to thank you. I know we said between 35, 40 minutes, and I always go past when I have a good guest. So I want to thank you for taking the time. And I said, hey, Glenn, I got a hard stop. Bye. For not doing that, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you doing it.
Well, Glenn, it was a lot of fun talking to you, and I really appreciate that you reached out. And I think we met on LinkedIn, so that was great.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. All righty. So, ladies and gentlemen, check the show notes so you can see everything's taking place and you know how to get a hold of her. And we'll say bye for now.